Hi everyone, and welcome to our second afternoon session. We're on day 10 of the VID19 conference. My name is Julia Steuart, and I'm joined by the wonderful Steuart Snooks, who's going to help us revolutionise our inboxes. I don't know about anyone else, Steuart, but I'm definitely getting a lot more emails than normal, thanks to everyone being not where I am and I'm not where they are. So thank you for leading this conversation. For people that have been on a VID19 session before, you will know that I ask you to open your chat box, please, and make sure that the to box is set to all panelists and attendees. And if you could please just pop in a quick good day or hello or wherever you're joining from, it would be great for Steuart just to see who's in the room and reassure him that there are plenty of people out there tuning in with their inboxes. So I can see a whole bunch of people joining in the chat, Steuart. So thanks everyone for doing that, and thanks for contributing this session, and I look forward to hopefully making my inbox a bit smaller than it actually is. So appreciate your time.
Thanks Julia. Hello everyone. Thanks for taking time out of your inbox to come and have a bit of a look at some of the issues that are around email and how we can get control of a slide. I'm also going to use the button that's behind me. So if I'm correct, you should be seeing that slideshow. Let me just explain myself. Get the technology working as we want. Yes, so the sessions around how to revolutionise your inbox. We need to take a whole new approach to the way that we manage them. And after 15 years as a specialist in this area, I've got some ideas that you might find helpful. Just a little bit about myself to start with. Steuart Snooks is my name. Yes, that is the correct spelling. You're probably looking at that and going, somebody got that wrong. I was named after the actor Steuart Grant, so I became Steuart Grant, and the spelling came from my father reading a book about British pilots, but he had two middle names. One of them was a good so I like the word, it explains the Scottish middle, and I've seen Scottish surnames for Steuart spelled this way. My parents seem to think it's a good idea, and so that explains the name. The reason for the hat, listen, I've got absolutely nothing to hide. But I have played a lot of outdoor sport, a lot of cricket, and I need to protect my solar panel, protect the skin in summer, and keep it warm in winter. This is the winter version here in Melbourne. It's moving into autumn, and it's pretty chilly. So explains enough about me.
Steuart,
and
sorry,
I have been.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes,
for some reason, your audio went a bit patchy for a while, but it suddenly got better. But yeah, we'll just keep an eye on it.
Yes, thanks for that. I was having similar challenges this morning. Just to explain that I've been working with busy execs, EAs, PAs, support staff, people across the board who have been for the last 15 years. I've been helping them manage in fact, essentially wrong. Everything that happens in an organisation now is going through the inbox at some stage, and it has a ripple effect on everything else that we're doing. So I thought we'd start off today by asking, what are your greatest email challenges, problems or frustrations? And this is where we can make use of the technology. If you jump into the chat area and just type some of the things that are top of mind. What are the things that you're challenged with, you're struggling with, are frustrating you? What are those problems? And I'll just read them out as everybody taps them in. And I need glasses for this. Let's have a look at that. Too many emails, volume, too many filing emails. Yeah, so 3 times in a row, straight quantities coming up. I'm not getting time to clear them, probably because of the quantity. Again, there's too many updates getting organised. Too much CC, so now relevance becoming an issue. CC again, being able to focus on what's important. Yes, there's so much there. There's a lot of clutter and distraction. Procrastinating. Too many ways to file, and that's a common issue, is filing. Multiple threads. Yes, the chat is going berserky with people. It's become I think Timothy Ferris talks about it, it's the greatest frustration in modern business life, one of the greatest time wasters in modern business life. Yeah, through to people sending things without a clear request for the action. Often email used as a chat box, and hasn't that happened a lot in these last few weeks as we've become to, well, a lot of those conversations we were having at the water cooler or in the corridor or across the room, have now been pushed into digital channels, and email's been a major form of those. So I'm hearing that email volumes have increased enormously. Thanks for the feedback, Carol, about the sound seeming to go when I move around. I will try and stay still.
So where is your mic? Is it on the table or is it on you?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay. All right, we'll persevere with it. It keeps just dropping in and out, but it's fine.
Okay, I'll do the best I can at my end. Thanks for that feedback. That'll be really good. What I have found is we can summarise some of those changes into a list that I've got here. A lot of emails too many. As I'll explain to you later, volume is my issue. It really is, and I'll explain what it is. Low people clutter, CC, spam. There's so much noise and not enough signal. The relentless pressure and demands that it's bringing nowadays, because so much is going through the email channel. More.
Sorry, Steuart. Can you just either unplug or replug your mic back in? Sorry, I'm just...
Sure, okay.
Because we can't, we're really struggling to... It's actually just up. I wouldn't normally interrupt, but it's actually distracting from what you're saying, and I just...
Thank you. Yeah.
Or if you've got a different mic that we can switch to.
I'm just seeing what my options are here. See if that makes any difference. How is that sounding now?
Much better.
Much better. Good. That's a good start. So we're talking about some of the service issues that come top of mind when we ask the question, the challenge. Where to store and file emails become an issue. Lack of clarity in email. I saw it there in some of the chat. And then the constant interruptions and multitasking. Because of the volumes, it's now constantly coming. It's like drinking from a fire hose. So there's some of the issues that are top of mind, and they're coming up in your chat. If we were to explore things a bit further, you'll find that those things are really the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to the impact that email is having in our work life, but also in our personal life. And if we were to dig a bit deeper under the surface, people start to talk about, how do I sort and prioritise messages? How do I keep track of everything? There's so much there. How do I stay on top of it all? Many people find that they're reading and rereading the same email time and time and time again. You look at email 3, 5, 8, 13 times before you move it on. People start to worry about losing messages and information. I had a construction client late last year say, Steuart, one of our directors missed an email and it's cost us $1 million. Can you come and help us get that right? He says, it's not the first time. So we really worry about that. And you often feel like you're making very little progress and you're only just keeping up. I've been working on email all day and haven't really got much else done. I think you can probably relate to some of those issues as well. And then the deeper issues, and these are the sort of things that you might talk about after a glass of wine or so, is there must be a better way, and you're frustrated because you haven't found it yet. You're using your skills to their absolute limit to stay on top. You're probably feeling frustrated that you're not as effective as you'd like to be, as you know you can be. And now that we're working remotely, it's even more critical to be able to get that side of working life working smoothly and effectively, because it binds up everything else if we can't. A lot of people worry about their own lack of ability to focus, and I just haven't got headspace for big picture stuff at the moment. I'm struggling to get my real work done, and I'm hoping that people won't judge my performance by the way I'm keeping on top of the inbox. And a lot of executives find, particularly, you spend high value time doing low payoff activities such as sifting, sorting, prioritising email. That time would be better used for higher priorities. And if you think about it, you're probably doing email the same way today as you did when you started 5 or 10 or 15 or more years ago. But email volumes and complexity, demands and workload has increased exponentially in that time, but our skill set hasn't. I say to people in my workshops, how many staff are there at Microsoft developing this Outlook program or the Gmail program, but our skill set has not been keeping up with what the technology makes possible for us. So as a result of that, I've developed this model over the years called the e-mastery model. And I might just put this up on the board to give you a bit of variety. So I'm hoping you're still hearing me. At the bottom, we are overloaded. Your inbox space constantly interrupted. You look at email multiple times before you move it on. You've got overflowing inbox volumes. You've got folders and subfolders and sub-subfolders and sub-sub-subfolders, and you feel like you're a slave to email. The second level is survival. And again, you're still inbox-based, not interrupted as much, still lots of multitasking. You're still looking at email a number of times, lots of volumes. Your folder is perhaps a little less complicated, but you're just keeping your chin above water. But if you have a day off or a crisis or something like that, you very quickly slip from survival into being overloaded again. The next level is effective. And this is where we make the change from being inbox-based to calendar-based. We shift from being interruption-driven to plan-driven. We shift from being reactive in the way that we handle this part of our work to something that's proactive. We're rarely interrupted. We have the skill set to look at an email once and move it on. Our inbox is kept under control, if not empty. And we have a condensed, simpler to use folder structure. And now we're in control of email. The fourth level is where we become smart. And that's where we start to write better outgoing messages, because the volume, which is the quantity, and the quality of what comes back in can often be dictated by how well we're sending email out. So we're able to write email that is what the American military call bluff, bottom line up front. We have the ability to check email once and write email that gets results. The ultimate level is mastery, and that's where you are able to interpret tone in email. You're able to respond appropriately. You are able to use keywords and language, and you're able to build rapport, create agreement, influence, negotiate, persuade, just using dots and dashes on a screen. You don't have your silky voice or your sweet smile. You've just got dots and dashes on a screen to have influence. So the question I've got for you now, if I come back to our slideshow, is where do you feel that you sit on this model now? If you had to pick a level, where are you on the e-mastery model now? And in fact, we've got a poll. And Julia, if you're there, could you pop up that poll on the model? And I'll get you to vote on where you feel you are. This is a really insightful thing. I was speaking at EA conferences last year, and I was very surprised at the results to this question. So are you at the overloaded end? Are you really struggling to stay up? Or are you surviving? You're just keeping your chin above water? Maybe you feel you're effective, smart, or mastering. So we're just waiting for those votes to come in. I'm not seeing any movement on that. Are you, Julia?
Yeah, they're coming in. I'll
okay, you can
I'll
see
just wait until we get to we're at 68% at the moment, so I'll give people another 5 seconds and then I'll share the results.
Yeah, terrific, terrific. This one question really highlighted for me how bad the issue is. Who would be the best users of email in the business community? One would think EAs, PAs, admin, support staff, because they're on it all day, every day. And I'll tell you what the percentage is for you once we had a look at the results. So there's the results. What have we got? 56% in the bottom rows. We've got 31% feel they're effective, but only 12% smart. And there's a couple of masters here, which is great. We might have to throw some questions to them, perhaps, Julia. Good. So that's interesting, isn't it? That's interesting. When I asked EAs and PAs who should be the best users, it was 59%. So 59% of the best users felt they were only just surviving or in fact were overloaded. So that is commensurate with the results that we're seeing here as well. Thanks for that, Julia. Close that off. Will you do that? So if you have any thoughts about that, pop them into the chat box. What are your insights or thoughts on that? Who's feeling a whole lot better that you're not one of the minority, that in fact you are also one of those that are struggling with those results? Julia, can you finish that poll off now? Close that off?
Yeah, it's gone this end. So
okay.
Let me
just... my end. And I'll just bring up that chat to see what people are saying. Yeah, somebody saying I'm an E, I fit right into that category. Good. Yeah, thanks for the comments. So, Julia, I think I'll stop that share and then I can start again where I want it to be. And of course, the question is, where would you like to be? Wherever you are on this model now, where would you like to be? And I think most of us would agree we'd like to be moving up the model. It's not much fun at the lower ends. And as you move up the model, it's taking less time, less effort, less stress, less cost, less frustration, less of the negatives. So let's have a chat about how you can move up the model and get away from the negative parts of it. So here's the root of the problem. Here's why we have the issue. And what I'll do is come back to the whiteboard again. In any organisation, we have got three elements. You've got people, personnel, your staff. I might just move that camera so you can see that a little better. We have got processes, ways of doing things, and we have platforms, tools, technology, apps, things like that. Where you get people with tools and technology, but not a good process, we get overloaded. So we get overwhelmed. There's so much coming at us now by email, by social media, and without a good process, we struggle to keep up. Where you've got good people, good process, but the tools are out of date, and we're going into a situation now where people are having to learn how to use new tools. But if the tools aren't up to date, it slows us down. It's a laborious, time-consuming way of doing things. Where you've got good processes, good tools, but people haven't been trained in the process and they haven't been shown how to harness and utilise their technology. You've got wasted resource in the technology. You pay 100% of the invoice to use Outlook, for example, but only use 10% of it. So there's there's wasted resource there. There's unfulfilled potential in staff. Our people could be working so much more productively if they just knew how. And that's been the missing piece. You see, you might have 50, 500, 5,000 staff, but there's probably just one or two processes for things like raising a purchase order, applying for leave, paying an invoice. There's a whole lot of business processes that have been standardised regardless of the number of people. But when it comes to email, you've got 50, 500, 5,000 people. How many ways of doing email is there? 50, 500, 5,000 different ways people are doing email because for some reason it has slipped through. It's something that's never been standardised and systematised across an organisation or across the business community. Everybody's doing their best with what they know. We just don't know enough to be on top of it now with the demands that it's making on us. So that's why we have the issue. It seems to have been my role in life to specialise in working out what is best practice process and showing people how to do that so that you're the master rather than the slave of email. And then also, how can I harness the tool a little better? How can I make more than just 10% use out of the technology that I've got, that I'm using all day and every day? So I'll just pause for a second to see if you've got any thoughts or comments or insights, having had a look at that. Thanks for the polls, great. I cleared the inbox until I find one that goes into the too hard basket. And yeah, and then those ones build up, good. Susan's asking, help me. Yes. Good, any other thoughts or comments, particularly on this model? I'm trying to pinpoint for you where the root of the problem is and what it is that we need to address to solve it. It's taken, well, how long has it taken to have these problems manifest? And will the solution be an instant one as a result? Probably not, but we can certainly get a big, quick turnaround, and then it's, of course, an ongoing journey of a continual development and discovery. So let me show you what I have been able to show people and develop over the last 15 years and see if there's something in it that will help you. We'll come to the slideshow. What I've found is most of our issues can be addressed by one of three strategies. We need to get control, firstly, of when we're looking at email. When does it get your attention? And do that in a structured way rather than an unstructured way. Secondly, we need to have a process. What is our process? What is it that we do with email? Most people's issues are a lack of process or a lack of good process or a lack of consistent process. And then the third of these strategies is where. Where do you store all this when it's in progress and then also when it's finished? How can you file in such a way that you can file quickly and retrieve quickly? Most of our problems around managing incoming email and workload can be addressed under these three headings. The first of these is when. And the research is in we can save 19 minutes a day by checking email less often than we do. Most of us check email far more often than we need to keep on top of it. And that's because we have an unstructured approach. By having a better process, a better what, we can save about 32 minutes a day. And then simplifying the foldering decision and retrieving decision will save about 23 minutes a day. So if you do the sums on that, and walk with me as we do this, that's 74 minutes a day. 74 minutes a day, an hour to an hour and a quarter to an hour and a half. If we do the sums, say 240 working days a year, that adds up to 296 hours. And that comes to 39 7.5-hour days a year can be saved, just saved, by being more effective around email and having a good solid process for that. That equates to around 11K per person based on, say, a 70K salary. Roughly, it works out at 15 to 20% of salary cost. And in these days where we are going to have to save costs because of the way the world is going, this is a very significant thing. If you can save costs and productivity there and not have to retrench people, I'm sure that for those who are in positions of making those decisions, that's a much better way to go. So here's the roadmap to what I show people under those three strategies, when, what, and where. Firstly, we talk about principles. Under when, the principle is be proactive, not reactive. Because email started as a lesser part of work, we allowed it to interrupt us because email was a novelty. Oh, I got an email, fantastic. Who's over it? I mean, who is over it? Who feels that it's trying to drink from a fire hose? But we're still treating it in this reactive way. So we need to be proactive, structured, give it full attention instead of partial attention, and plan it into our day. And that's where the process is to schedule times for email. You schedule time for meetings, you schedule time for this webinar, teleconferences, phone appointments, but we don't schedule time in our calendar for email. And yet of those three sorts of conversations, the email is the only one that's non-verbal, it's written, it's digital, and it's the hardest one to get right. Yet we don't set aside time to give to it mentally with dedicated focus and effort. Once you have got time scheduled in, it allows you to turn off the alerts. You can turn off all the alerts and be blissfully ignorant of exactly when people are hitting send anywhere in the world because you know when you're going to attend to it. And then the third part of that was you manage expectations around the games played with people. Let me pause there for a second and just see if you've got any thoughts or questions. I'm happy to take questions as we go through rather than leave them all till later and you might have forgotten the thing you wanted to ask. So I'll just pause and type them into the chat. Julia, do we have a raise the hand option where we can have someone ask a complex question verbally?
Yep.
Okay, so if you feel like it's a question that's too hard for typing, raise your hand and Julia can unmute your microphone. We can talk about that one verbally. What thoughts, questions are you having as you look at what we're talking about? Yes, that's right, Heidi. It was people or personnel, processes, not progress, processes, and then platform. Yeah, we need to use the tools better. I get distracted when I need to send an email and open your inbox. Yes, Margaret, in workshops, I show people how you can turn off all the audible and visible alerts. But as you said, when you're working in the inbox, you're often interrupted just by physically seeing them. And there's no alert going off, but you physically see them. There's a way that we can fix that as well. It's called working offline. So you can be working in the inbox, doing stuff, and you're working offline. And there's a good degree of flexibility around what you can do there. I call it the email cat flap. So email is set up like the cat flap, like for a pet can get in and out automatically all by itself. That's the way email is. But I can slip over to that cat flap and push the lever, and now the cat can't get in or out unless I say so. Or I can go and press the lever another way, the cat can get out, but not in. It's the same with our inbox. There are settings that allow you to work in the inbox without being interrupted by new ones. As you click send, they're mounting up at the outbox, and you can do a send all. So it sends them out without letting new ones come in, so you stay focused. There are ways to keep you focused even if you are working in the inbox. I've just seen any other things. Filtering, yeah. Clay Sherky says email overload is not about volume, it's lack of filtering. You know, we just don't filter well enough. Good. Scheduling time. Yes, of course, there's the exception. So how is scheduling time when you're waiting for the urgent priority email? You can set up all your alerts off and you can have exceptions for certain people because of their address or for certain words in the subject lines, for example, if it's urgent, and just educate people that you have got all the alerts off, but if it's urgent, if you pop urgent in the subject line, that one will pop up with an alert. So again, it's a flexible system. There are ways of doing that in Gmail as well as Outlook. So the questions and comments seem to have dried up. So what I might do is come back to the middle of the Revolutionise Your Inbox, what do we call this, handout, roadmap, under the what? Handle each email only once. My take on this is that your time, my time, is too valuable to ever look at an email more than once. With the volumes you and I get this day, we need to have a process that allows us to look at it once and move it on. The Zeigarnik effect is something that Bluma Zeigarnik, a Soviet psychologist in the 1920s, she noticed something watching Italian waiters in restaurants. She noticed that they could remember orders that they had not yet delivered to a table. If you said, hey, Giuseppe, why are we waiting? What are we waiting for on table 5? He could tell you around the table what everyone had ordered. But if you said, hey, Giuseppe, what did you deliver on table 10 5 minutes ago? He would really struggle to think. And she researched this, and she found that we humans remember interrupted, incomplete, unfinished tasks much more readily than when we've finished something off. It seems to drop out of our thinking once we've done it. And so what happens is when we look at an email but don't take action on it, or don't have the next action in a system that we trust will bring it back at the appropriate time, the mind won't let go. It opens up a file at a subconscious level, and now your mind, as a small part of your mind, is trying to keep track of that issue or activity or commitment that is open-ended. And so it uses up a lot of RAM, random access memory, and you find it really hard to concentrate because so much of the subconscious mind is trying to keep track of open ends that you've started by looking at an email but not progressed it or not been in control of it. So that's one of the reasons it's so important to be able to look at them just once. The way that we do it, and I want to show you a few insights here, is to use the 4D methodology. This is what all the great time management gurus that I've studied in the last 25 years have talked about. You've probably heard of Stephen Covey, Brian Tracy, David Allen, Timothy Ferriss, Steuart Snooks. We all talk about the 4Ds. I disagree with the guys on the 4th D in terms of the name of it, but every time we look at an email, we just make one of 4 decisions and we process email. It just becomes a process. So I'll unpack a little bit of that for you. How do you currently manage the inbox? And we'll put up a poll in a second. Do you use flags? A lot of people use flags, colors, categories. Do you move it to separate folders, like you'll have an action folder or a reading folder or a CC folder? Some people, in fact, a lot of people read the email, but they haven't taken action on it, so they go back and mark it as unread so that they remember they haven't actioned it yet. Who does that? Do you do that? For those that do it, can I ask this question? How many times a year do you do that? Go back and mark something as unread. Some people can change the priority. You can alter the colour of a subject line so that certain messages in the inbox stand out in a different colour to get your attention. You can also change the text of the subject line so it suits you. I might send you an email about widgets, but you tend to think in terms of gadgets, and you can change widgets to gadgets or add the word gadgets so that when you're searching for it, it makes sense at your end as well. And I found this asking EAs and PAs, what are some of the other things that you do to manage? And a number of them said, oh, I resend it to myself so it comes back in at the top again. Who does that? And then there's a whole range of others as well. But Julia, we might launch that poll just to ask the question. And again, this is really interesting and insightful. Get you to vote on which one of these that you're using. You can choose multiples of them because you probably are using multiple tools to try and manage your inbox. And again, those choices are flags, categories and colours, separate action folders, marking as read or unread as your way of distinguishing. If you can't vote on that, yeah, I see some of you typing it into the chat box. If you find that there's an option that's not showing there on the poll, perhaps you can type it into that chat box. Flags, resend to myself, that's coming up. Flags again. How's the numbers going, Julia? Percentage-wise?
I'll just give people a bit more time. We're at 48% at the moment.
It'll take a little longer because people will often choose 2 or 3 or maybe even more. Lisa says, no, I'm using none of them. That's why I'm listening. Great. That's good, Lisa, because you haven't got any, if you like, bad habits. We can get you started with good habits straight away. Sometimes people move it into the calendar, which is one of the things I don't have listed there. Good. Print them off. Really, Gary, you print them off. Again, quite a few people prefer the tangibility of a printed copy and the portability to some extent of a printed copy. How are we doing now?
We're at 53%. So
okay, we'll give it a little bit longer. I mean, there's a whole range of ways that we are trying to keep up with the game. There's a whole range of tools, and this is one of the problems. We're all using different systems in different ways to do our best. And as I'll ask you, you're using all these tools, but how's it going for you? It's still a struggle, isn't it? And I want to just give you a hint at a process that I think can, well, revolutionise your inbox. I won't have time to unpack it. We won't have time to explain how, but I can show you an overview of what it is and give you a sense of hope and direction that this is a game that you can win. Good. Somebody, Susan's saying, just did it myself. It's easy. Adding a keyword to the subject line. She obviously didn't realise you could change the subject line. Andrew says, I set a colour if it's only to me. Another colour is a CC only and has 4 colours. So great. And I'm assuming that's in the subject line so that they stand out. Good, good. Excellent. I'm hoping, to be honest, I'm hoping to pick up a good idea from you as an audience as well. So I can add and tell others. No, you don't have to resend it to change the subject line. Yeah, you can just open it up and type in the subject line. Then you might be restricted. There's just one little button you have to click. But, contact me afterwards if you have a struggle with that. But yeah, it's straightforward. Yeah, good. How are we going now, Julia? Got to about 75, 80%. Okay, here we go. So flags are very popular, aren't they? They're immensely popular. Colours as well. Moving to action folders. Resending to yourself. Gee, look at that, 30%. 30% resended themselves. And I assume that that's so that it comes back in at the top, so that you remember to prioritise it. 46% are using that mark as unread. Yeah, so there's a whole range of ways we are trying to manage the inbox, and we're doing our best, and it's still a struggle. So let me show you what I have found to be the game changer, to be the breakthrough. It's something that I have developed over the last 18 months, and it has really made a big difference. So if you close that poll now, Julia, and I will talk about where you can go from here in terms of getting control of this situation. David Allen, in his book, GTD, Getting Things Done, talks about the timeless solution for managing our stuff, whether it's paper, whether it's digital, whatever the tool is, the technology is we need these 3 steps. We need a process. It needs to be consistent, it needs to be repeatable, and it needs to take as little energy as possible. You need a process. We need a process for email, just as we do for a whole range of other business functions. We do have to do some thinking. We can't outsource to an app decision-making and thinking. We can outsource automated decisions, but we need to have come up with good decisions in the first place. And we do need to do some mental thinking. We need to clarify and identify next actions for each email. And then the third step is that we need a trusted system that will capture the results of our thinking and our decision-making. And I've added to this, there's a piece missing from this. We need a trusted system that stores what you need, where you need it, until when you need it. And it's that when piece that seems to be missing. Most of us have the what we need, which is the email, and we store it where we need it, which is the inbox, but we don't have any distinguishing of time. And we have to reprioritise the inbox every time we look at it. We have to sift and sort. We're looking at today's mixed in with next week's, with next month's, with tomorrow's. And it's a constant mental game that uses up a lot of our mental gas. So it's a bit like a combination safe. We've got 2 of the knobs to turn, but we haven't got the third one. And so we're just not getting the breakthrough. We've got the what and the where, the inbox and the email and the inbox, but we haven't got the when. That's the piece that's missing. That's the piece that I'll show you how you can get control of now in these few minutes we've got left. So just a quick overview of the 4D methodology. I'd be surprised if you're not familiar with it. All of the guys that I've studied talk about it. Some say 5, but the vast majority say 4. Every time we look at an email, we need to make one of 4 possible decisions. And these are those. Decision is to delete it. You don't need to take action. You don't need to keep it. You can delete it. The second one is deal with it straight away. The next action, it may not finish it, but the next action is to take an action that will take less than 2 minutes. That might be a quick reply, might be quickly file it, but there's something you can do in 2 minutes or less. And it's quicker to do it now, the first time you touched it, than the time it takes to store it. Keep track of it, retrieve it, read it, think about it, make a decision. and do it later. About the 2-minute rule. The third one is delegate. The next action needs to be done by somebody else. And in Melbourne here, we've got Aussie rules. Well, we did have until all the sport got stopped, but you hand pass it to someone else. Delegate it to someone else. And the fourth one is decide. Now, the other time management guys talk about the word, they use the word defer. So just type into the chat box, what comes top of mind as soon as you hear the word defer? What does that imply for you? I'm just looking at the chat box to see what you think when you hear defer. Yeah, leave it for later, put it off till later, do it later, double handling, put it off, leave it. Yeah, it means you don't do anything with it and it's sitting there, and that means you've got to go back and look at it again for at least the second time and make a decision later. So defer really means not make a decision. That's why I prefer the much more positive, proactive word decide. I need to make a decision. And we do that decision making in 2 steps. The first one is triage. You look at your inbox, particularly first thing in the morning, and you've got a whole lot that have come in overnight or first thing in the morning. And so you want to be across them really quickly, because it might be number 27 that's the most important. You don't want to have taken a long time to get there. So you work your way through it by triaging them. And then the second step, I'll come to in a moment. So when we triage, we can assign a priority to that email. If we haven't deleted it, dealt with it, or just delegated it, we decide how important is it, what is the next action, and when am I going to come back? What's the due date for me taking that action? And so we can, I'm going to use Outlook as the example. I don't know how to do it in Gmail, to be honest, but in Outlook, we can certainly do it. And the vast majority of my clients are in Outlook. So we can set up Outlook to capture these 3 decisions, the what, the where, and the when. So we can set up columns that will add a priority. In fact, it's already in Outlook. It's on the far left-hand side of your inbox is a column with the exclamation mark. That's your priority column. We can change the priority. We can give it a high, medium, or low priority. And that way, when we come back to it, we're working in priority order first. The second thing we can do is type in the next action. We can set up a column in Outlook that allows us to type in the next action. So you don't have to go back and read and reread just to get up to speed. All you need to do is read the action and get on with it. You might refer to the body of the message for some detail, but it allows you to very quickly get on with it without the reading and analysing and getting back up to speed again, which is the great killer time-wise. And then the third one, and this is the one that makes a huge difference, is you can pop in a column with a date that you're going to come back and pay attention to. And so you look at your email, you delete, you delegate, you decide, you deal with. But this one I can't deal with straight away. I need to spend some time on it. I haven't got time to think of that now. And so you decide what that next action is and when you come back to it today, tomorrow, next week, next month, 6 months, 12 months is when you want to be reminded of it. And that way you only see that email. It only gets your attention on the day you need to see it. So once you've got your inbox set up this way, there's only 2 areas of the inbox you look at. You look at the when none or the due date none. These are the ones that have been unassigned. These are your new unread emails. And you can see the 3 columns there. There's a column for priority, there's a column for typing in the next action, and there's a column for capturing your due date. Once you've gone through that and you've got that back to 0, and for some of you that might be a challenge from where you are now, you might have 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, but we can quickly fix that for you. But once you get down to this, then you only go and look at today's emails. You've got 12 emails that you need to pay attention to today. You process them in order of priority, because there's a fair chance you won't get them all done. And the ones that don't get done are the lowest priority. The beauty about this system is you can very quickly drag and drop to one of the other dates that you can see lower down the inbox, and it'll very quickly reprioritise your email, because I didn't get to that one today. This has been the groundbreaking breakthrough method to help people look at email once, capture what needs to be done, store it where it needs to be, and only bring it back to you when you need to see it. So let me just pause there to see if you have any comments or questions. Thanks, Andrew. Can I decide to defer? Yes, you can. But as long as you decide when it is you're going to defer to. Louise is saying she likes the due date option. Priyana saying, yeah, I never knew you could do that. Most people don't. What's the column to add next action? Yes, again, that's something I can show you how to set that up, but most importantly, how to use it. It's very important to know how to use it. It's a very powerful tool, and you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. It's a bit like giving a learner driver the keys to the car. You can give him the keys to a low power car and he probably won't get into too much trouble, but give him the keys to a high power car without learning how to drive it properly, without lessons, can have a lot of trouble. It's the same with this. There's a bit of time showing people how to set it up, how to use it effectively. And in a workshop, I get people to do that hands-on while I'm looking over their shoulder, because I can often answer questions you wouldn't even think to ask, and make sure that you stay between the lines of good practice on this. Never had the preview panel. Okay, yep, the preview panel allows you, when you set this up, you do have the preview pane. We bring it in, and what it does is it concertinas the width of those columns. I've just got rid of it for the moment to show you in detail there what that looks like. Margaret's saying that looks awesome. Vu's going, cool. Sheila's going, this is great. Vu's saying, I love the preview pane. Yep. Is there a way to do this if you have to manage multiple mailboxes? Love that question, because for those of you who are in support roles and are looking after a colleague's email, or you're in a shared mailbox environment, what this means is that you can take action and you can let people know what they need to do next. It might be their mailbox and you've sorted it for them. We can have other columns that have your name for the ones you're responsible for. There's a whole range of things that we can do in a shared mailbox situation to make it a whole lot easier for everyone to know who's doing what and when, so that you create order out of chaos. Just having a look at other questions. Yes, Gmail, I need to explore that. I'm so busy, to be honest, I've been so busy with Outlook clientele because most of my clients are on Outlook. I haven't had time to research the Gmail side of things. So that's the triage view. It allows you to very quickly be across your email, and you'll satisfy that what you need to know is where you need it, and it'll come back to you when you need it. And you'll not have to sift, sort, prioritise on the run every single time you're looking at that inbox. The second step is you would go back to today's emails and do that deeper level of thinking and planning that might be needed. And quite a lot of those will in fact now get moved into the calendar. And again, in a workshop setting, I'll show you how to put it in the calendar and start using the calendar as the tool to manage your workload, your timeframes, your commitments, not your inbox, not your to-do list, and certainly not your memory. The calendar is a much, much better tool. So emails come into the inbox, they get processed, and you deal with them on the day if they're probably 15 minutes or less in the inbox. More than 15 minutes a day, you work out of the calendar. So I haven't got time to unpack that now, but here's a bit of feedback, just so you get a sense of what others who have experienced this in a workshop setting have done. I get this a lot. This workshop was life-changing. Get that a lot. Here's one completely unsolicited. This one came from a book. She says, I'm leaving for the weekend. For the first time ever, I'm leaving for the weekend with a clear inbox. It's so heartening to hear that it's making that difference for people. And she sent me a screenshot of her inbox, and here it is. How do you feel looking at an inbox that looks like that compared to what you're probably facing on a day-by-day basis? Nice and clean and organised, and in order of priority on and date order as well. Here's a group of VAs I work with at McDonald's. Lovely group of people. They were fantastic. Amanda Bultitude saw me talk about this concept at a conference. She said, can you come and run this in-house? This is us running the program. Deborah said this. She can't believe the incredible difference this stuff is making. I feel much more organised, particularly that triage system. Amanda herself, you can see all the OMG and the exclamation marks. That's all well and fine on the day, but I asked Amanda, listen, it's been 2 months now. Can you give me some feedback what it's like 2 months down the track? And so she wrote these notes for me. For the first time ever, came back from a week's leave and took no time to get it under control. And again, there's that statement, it's been life-changing. She and her colleagues are all leaving at the end of each week, feeling on top of things. And isn't that even more critical now that you're working remotely and working from home and the volumes have increased? This is the most recent feedback I got just 10 days ago. This was feedback people filled in at the end of a one-day workshop. My inbox is finally organised after 2 years of chaos. Love to hear that. Gee, that's good to make people get away from being trapped. And I often get this one as well. Having worked in Outlook for 20 years, it amazes me what I don't know. We don't even know what we don't know in terms of what's possible in our software, whether that's Gmail or whether it's Outlook. So that's a bit of an overview. Once we get people trained in using the process, now you can speed it up. You can use a whole range of strategies and tools to speed up a good 4D process, but you need to have a good process first. It's a bit like driving a car with the front wheel out of balance. You know how it makes the steering wheel shudder? Well, the last thing you want to do is speed up because it becomes completely uncontrollable. What we need to do is get that wheel in balance, get that 4D process working really well, and now we can speed it up. And again, I show about 7 or 8 ways that you can speed up the process of using a range of tools, such as rules, and in Outlook you've got quick steps and quick parts, drafts, templates. Autocorrect is a great one, and even voice to text will speed up, because the bottleneck to being productive when you're using email is typing speed. And anything that can minimise the amount of typing you do will be great. I'm not keeping an eye on the chat, but I'll give you about 10 minutes for a bit of Q&A, and I'll have a quick look at that chat. As you can see, under the where column, we need to separate complete from incomplete. Most people have folders, subfolders, sub-subfolders, or they've just given up and leave everything in the inbox. And you've got complete mixed with incomplete. We talk about separating that. Simplify the email folder structure. The ultimate example is just one folder. Just have one folder. It's very easy to know where to go. It's very easy to know where to get it back. And the reason we tend not to do that is because we haven't learned how to harness the power of search. Once you know how search works, and search has evolved enormously in the last decade, why would you rely on your memory to remember a file hierarchy when you can rely on your search function to do that? So that's a bit of an overview of that. Just quickly, the feedback from the workshop, just to prove that it is revolutionising people's inbox. They're the sort of results that have come from the last 4 one-day face-to-face workshops, I must admit. And I've just turned it into an online program, and we'll drop that link into the chat if you want to have a look at that. So it's 5 one-hour workshops in bite-sized chunks, so you can learn a bit, consolidate, come back and learn a bit more. Starting that next month, if you're interested to go on the journey with me to revolutionise your inbox. That's about it. I'm happy to answer any questions. Julia, would you like to, have you spotted anything in the chat?
Oh yeah, thanks so much, Steuart. Yeah, there's plenty of ideas and people actually changing their inbox as you are talking. So some great feedback in the chat for you, people making changes as they go, which is positive. I was part of an organisation in the UK called what used to be called Orange Mobile. I think they're now owned by BT, and they had. This would be in the late 90s, and everyone was sending far too many emails, and they actually brought out a rule called face-to-face Fridays. So the rule was, if you were on the same floor as someone, you couldn't actually email them on a Friday. You had to go and see them. And it's something that I probably happened in my early 20s, very early on in my career, but it actually reinforced. I'm very conscious about sending emails, so I notice the less emails I send, the more I get back as well. So it's not a tool-based approach, but certainly email's the last response. So can I call the person? Can I go and see them? And then I'll email them. And if I don't, I find that I get fewer emails.
Yes.
Because I'm not hitting the tennis ball over the net, it doesn't come back. It doesn't come back to me.
Yeah, the more you'll get. It's a law.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Julie's asked, what about rules?
Rules are one of the 7 ways to speed things up. We need to make good decisions manually and get our decision making working properly. Then we can use rules to do those automatically. My colleague Michael Hoffman is an American who's based in Barcelona, has developed a process in that called email. But in fact, talking with Michael's been an amazing catalyst for me coming up with this approach. But he says that rules are based on algorithms and apps are based on algorithms, and they're based on past decisions. And the problem with that is working on them. The problem with that is it's going to suck.
Yeah, your audio just suddenly went again. I'm not sure what changed, but it was perfect for 35 minutes and then it's just gone again.
Okay, how is it now? Is it just better now? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so rules are great once you've got your basic 4D decision making working well. Then you can speed it up. Use rules to automate things that you notice. Because when you do 4D, you'll notice patterns and trends, but you're very conscious of going through a process. Now that you spot that pattern or trend, I can get a rule or half a dozen other ways to speed it up, either automated or quicken it up. Good. What else?
Yeah, Andrew said I have 1 offline in folder per month and 1 out folder per month. My head is good enough to remember roughly when the conversation happened, and he remembers face-to-face Fridays too.
Yes. And Lisa's asking about CC. What do you do when you're a CC? In the early days, we talked about creating a rule that it goes into a CC folder, and you'll look at that as often as you need to keep up. But as you've mentioned, the problem there is someone might have put you in a CC when in fact you needed to do something and you actually should have been in the to line. So setting up a rule to automatically relocate CCs to its own folder has some problems. So what I do is I set up a rule that makes CC a low priority, and it's in a different color and in italics, and they sit at the bottom of my inbox when they come in. So I work my way through the ones I am responsible for. And hang on, I've still got 6 left. They're the CCs, because generally speaking, they'll be a lower priority. So I haven't put them out of sight, out of mind and out of control. They're still there, but I get through the stuff that I'm responsible first. And then there's the other part of that, Lisa, of course, is to educate people how to use CC appropriately. And that would solve a lot of the problems at the front end. So any other questions or thoughts?
I think there's nothing in the Q&A, so I really encourage everyone to just check out Steuart's email address, link that you popped in the chat, so emailproductivity.com.au. Lots to learn in that space.
Yes, it's central to what most of us are doing these days. We spend almost all day, every day. If there's one area that you would spend in professional development over these next 3 to 6 months, it's so if I can help with a Band-Aid, think of me as your doctor. If you're sick of email and your email's sick, reach out and I'll diagnose a Band-Aid or a Panadol or a course of antibiotics and help you with the immediate problem, but also if you do a bit of training, solve the longer term underlying issues and fix the problem on an ongoing basis.
Thanks so much, Steuart. Yeah, we're good. Thanks so much. I encourage everyone to follow up with you, and thanks again for taking us through things. I'm going to go and implement a few things, and well, in between now and the next session. So thanks again, Steuart.
Pleasure. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening, and stay well in our current environment.
You too.